Come on, Mashood, how are you?
Very well. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very well. We're in Grayshott. Where is that? Incredible. So it's got a lot of history, but rubbish internet.
Brilliant internet now that we've come on board since Grayshott Gigabit built out our fiber network here. Yeah, absolutely. We actually have one of the fastest networks in the country. We can serve all of our customers with 10 gigabit symmetrical services, so much better than London, Dubai, and other places around the world. Let me just think. I was actually a medical rep working for a pharmaceutical company. I'd graduated from university, decided to do a PhD, left that halfway through. Pivoted many times. I've gone from pharmaceuticals to telecoms, from telecoms in different roles in telecoms to running a telecom business. To be honest with you, I really actually didn't even know what I was going to do.
You were needed in COVID by the sounds of it, working for Pfizer and AstraZeneca.
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, yeah. So maybe my life would have been different if I'd stayed in research, etc. I would have done poster, but I just didn't have the passion. I mean, I was talking to test tubes at night. I don't care whether they've done a degree or not a degree. I don't look at that.
That's perfect. Extraordinary People podcast. I'm here with another inspiring person, the man who got me into Age of the Empires. Come on, Mashood, how are you?
Very well. How you doing?
Alhamdulillah, I'm very well. We're in Grayshott. Where is that?
Grayshott is just south of London towards Portsmouth down the A3.
This is one of the highest points in Surrey, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we're famous with our own microclimate up here. We're like the Switzerland of Surrey, or the Switzerland of the South. So basically, we're the highest point in the Surrey area, and traditionally, a long time ago, there were lots of famous people that moved here when TB happened in the past in the UK, and so there's lots of old age care homes, etc., in this area because the air quality was much better than obviously in London, and so retirees and folks that wanted a better standard of living in terms of air quality came to this area. So Hindhead and Grayshott and Hazelmere is renowned for a lot of care homes and elderly care homes, and lots of famous people resided here, like George Bernard Shaw and Arthur Conan Doyle, etc. So
The guy who wrote Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So basically, there's both of them have houses that are now converted into schools that are part of the fabric of the local society.
That's incredible. So it's got a lot of history, but rubbish internet.
Brilliant internet now that we've come on board since Grayshott Gigabit built out our fiber network here. Yeah, absolutely great internet. We actually have one of the fastest networks in the country. We can serve all of our customers with 10 gigabit symmetrical services, so much better than London, Dubai, and other places around the world.
Mashood, Q, what can I call you?
You call me what you want. Yeah.
Cool. Well, Q always reminds me of James Bond. But no, we'll go with Mashood. So yourself, how did you, as you just mentioned, you've been in this is the telecoms industry, and you've connected a lot of these folk who I remember being here 2 years ago, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But I couldn't even get reception on my phone or mobile data. So things have definitely changed since then. How did you get into telecoms?
Oh, long story. Getting into telecoms, it just happened by chance, actually. Telecoms itself. Let me just think. I was actually a medical rep working for a pharmaceutical company. I'd graduated from university, decided to do a PhD, left that halfway through, and then was working for a company. I don't know which one it was at that point in time. Maybe it was Pfizer or it was, I can't remember who it was, etc. And I used to do lots of clinical events for doctors. And so as part of the National Institute of Clinical Effectiveness requirements, and I used to promote lots of products. One of the products I used to promote was a statin called Lipitor, atorvastatin, which lowers cholesterol. And as part of that, we used to do lots of studies with doctors and lots of sessions with doctors as part of their NICE requirements. And one of those sessions I was doing in a hotel in Holborn. and a friend of mine said, "Oh, we've got a open day for a telecoms company that he used to work for, and they were actually doing a session at the nearby hotel, at another hotel in Holborn." So I went down there just to meet him. And I thought, well, while I'm there, let's just do an interview. It was a walk-in interview. I went there, did a walk-in interview, and I got a job to do streaming sales for a company called Level 3, which then became a company called, well, I changed names so many times. I think the last name it was Lumen, and I can't remember what they're called now. But basically, they're a wholesale provider of data centers and metro and national carrier lines, which basically carry the internet around the world.
There's so much to unpack there. So from walking into an interview, and that came from a friend suggestion.
Well, yeah. So basically, I actually was meeting him for lunch because he was just around the corner and he worked. So I met him for lunch in Holborn, and at the same hotel that we went for lunch, they were holding walk-in interviews, and this was like in the 90s. The 1990s, that is. Okay. And at that time, it was the dot-com boom, etc. And so there were lots of new telecom companies and new startup companies, etc., coming online. And so there was quite a high demand of hiring. And so yeah, I went there, met him for lunch. There was a walk-in interview process happening. Went there, did a walk-in interview, and got the job. Yeah.
So I think also just to run back a little bit, so that's also for people who wouldn't know, that's the time when you were, for example, you couldn't be on a call at the same time as using your internet, and the famous internet sound, the electronic beep 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 thing.
Oh, okay, fine. Yeah, around that time when we used to have a dial-up tones. Yeah. So
exactly,
basically, when dial-up used to actually connect your internet via phone. I think that'll be alien to a lot of kids nowadays, etc. Kids nowadays don't even know what VHS and stuff like that is. I mean, I came back from living abroad. I came back and I had lots of stuff in my attic, and I actually had VHS, tapes and cassette recorder tapes, etc. I mean, because I've got zero idea what these things are, but I still use them. In fact, I was disappointed to come back and and not be able to buy. I used to have like one of those hi-fi systems, we used to call them. I don't think people know what hi-fi is nowadays. Okay, and so so I wanted to play my tapes and my CDs, etc. on this. So I had to. I paid £40 from Argos for a really crap one that used to probably cost me £8 back in the day. So and I bought a Walkman as well, just to listen to my cassettes. But anyway, yeah, that's a different story.
No, it sounds like a golden time, and I think for a lot of people it was a golden time when like AOL was like first coming out, and people were talking about the internet more. I think when it was more commonly accessible to everybody. I think I remember like being in school, secondary school, and then MSN started to become a thing, and these other kind of things, and because prior to that, I don't remember being like 6 years old or whatever and knowing much about computers or anything like this.
No, I think, we had computers growing up. I remember the first computer that actually we got was the Spectrum ZX81. And I remember that we used to get these books that used to program codes, like those games that, you play with a ping from either side, like the game that you play in the arcade, the air hockey or the football one or whatever. So basically that was a game, and you had to do like a 2 days worth of coding just to get to that level of create that game. And, games on at that time were like... on cassette tapes, and I remember us getting a 32K extra memory SCART socket that I used to plug into the back of our ZX81, etc. to double its memory from 32K to 64K. So all those things are alien to kids nowadays and the younger generation. But things have become so much easier, ubiquitous now. And people don't know about the back end technology. But that's how lots of us who grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, etc., started off.
So Mashood, I think one thing that immediately stood out to me was you've obviously got this medical rep background, and you started a PhD. I don't know what PhD life was like during the time that you were in it, but we have various reasons that people are not enjoying PhDs perhaps as maybe as they once were. So I'm interested in your motivation and your reason for leaving.
I mean, to be honest with you, I just finished my degree. I did my degree from King's College in London, and I did a degree in pharmacology, and I did well in it. And to be honest with you, I really actually didn't even know what I was going to do. I had no idea. And at that time, I didn't think there was really that much guidance as such. And so I've got kids now who are doing universities and such. And so I know everything about the university. I go and research for universities. I look over courses. I see the opportunities, etc., etc. There's so much more information available. Growing up back then, you just went to university and then you thought, okay, you find a job afterwards. And when you do a degree in the sciences or biomedical sciences, or as pharmacology it was, you end up thinking, okay, fine, where do I end up? You can either go into research, and I did research as part of my degree. I worked for AstraZeneca for a year as my industrial placement year, and I didn't really fancy that. You could go into things like patent law, etc., and you can start having a look at that aspect of it if you wanted to go down the commercial route. And then I think other than that, you would then maybe do a master's or a doctorate, and then moving forward a postdoctorate. And so that was probably the natural angle for me. I got a sponsorship to do a PhD straight from my degree, and that was Imperial. And actually, I went ahead and did it. It was actually more so at a part of Imperial, which is the Royal Harefield Hospital of National Lung and Heart Institute, which is based in Chelsea, Chelsea and Fulham area. And so I started my PhD just out of, not knowing what else to do.
And did it, for the time that you were doing it, did it interest you? Do you remember using any of the skills that you learned in your degree? Did you even have a sense of, was there a sense of stability in it, or was it just like, okay, I'm doing this and I'm just doing it because it's available?
I think it was more the latter. I think it was just doing it because it's available. I think when you leave university, if you're not guided as such, and there isn't so much of a cohort of understanding of exactly what you need to do, and you don't have that guidance, then you just end up just doing something rather than nothing. And so for me, it was okay, fine, a natural extension of what I was supposed to have done in my degree. But in degree, you are learning. It's all theory based. Yeah, you do practicals, etc., but it's mostly theory based. And in a PhD, it's a completely different model. I mean, and you've got professors, etc., who hardly ever you get to speak to. Okay, so there's not that much guidance. I mean, like A levels and GCSEs, the guidance decreases as you go higher up in your career, and if you're not prepared for that step change in understanding, and you don't have that self motivation to do that, that's I think where you fall flat. And I felt that I actually didn't have the guidance in order for me to really understand, what the value is of my PhD. I mean, doing a PhD from Imperial, looking back at it, I mean, my kids are trying to apply to these universities, and I'm thinking, well, I've been there, done that. I should have stayed there. Actually, I should have stayed there. But that was a different.
You were needed in COVID, by the sounds of it, working for Pfizer and AstraZeneca.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. So maybe my life would have been different if I'd stayed in research, etc. I would have done postdoc, but I just didn't have the passion. I mean, I was talking to test tubes at night. That's I was I you know I was I was working on I can't remember, I think it was cytokines or something like that, which are basically hormones that are naturally occurring in the body, and in areas like in areas like rheumatoid arthritis and cystic fibrosis and diseases like that. Sometimes the body overproduces hormones that are supposed to become a defense mechanism for the body against other diseases and other viruses. And when they're overexerted and overproduced, the body starts attacking, these hormones start attacking the body itself. So that's what leads to some of the underlying diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and cystic fibrosis and things like that. And so what my subject was related to these aspects. And I mean, why I left my university or why I left the PhD was simply because it was a very nocturnal environment, but not in a nocturnal go out and have fun type environment, but actually, I used to carry a pager. I don't know if you remember what a pager is, but yeah, I used to carry a pager with me, and the pager used to inform me of an RTA, which is a road traffic accident. And it's kind of morbid actually. And so basically anyone who used to carry a donor card, when there was a piece of lung tissue available, say they had a road traffic accident, etc., sometimes we used to get a piece of tissue from the trachea. And so I had to go to...
Oh, wow. So
yeah.
from a deceased person? From a person who's passed away?
Well, I don't know if it passed away or not passed away, but anyway, I did a questionnaire, so we used to just get a piece of tissue, etc. And so that was, because when you do experiments, etc., you need live tissue environments, etc., and so you need to prepare that. And so looking back on it, I can't remember how long that preparation time was, etc., but it was a kind of a nocturnal blade type environment to do a PhD in, etc. So not that I encountered any vampires out there, but it was kind of tough. It was kind of tough, and then when you don't have a supervision as such, and when you don't have the guidance, and you don't really know what you're doing, you sort of like lose interest. And if you start losing interest, and you don't create a passion for it, then you start skipping days, etc., and then you think, okay, I need an exit from this.
For those of you who don't know, a pager can be seen, I think it's in one of Nelly's music videos where he's talking to someone on Excel, so it's very funny.
What's Excel? What do you mean Excel?
So there's a funny scene in one of his music videos where he's got he's texting someone from an Excel sheet.
Okay.
It's like a very funny, people have picked up on it later on in years. Okay. So it wasn't a traditional pager, I don't think.
Okay,
cool. Basically, so fast forward, you've been in many management roles, you've got your own telecoms company. My question is, and we've had this discussion off air, when you're looking to hire people, when you're going through that process of looking for CVs, there is this idea that for some PhDs or people who are very well qualified, that sometimes that can go against their favor. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people in my field of study that unless you're sticking in research, you will end up meeting these closed doors where people are like, okay, well, where's your work experience? It's nice that you did this specific thing. Just curious, when you've been in those situations as the person hiring or looking at CVs, how have you viewed it?
So I look at the person, I try and find interesting people. When you go through a number of CVs, etc., as a hiring manager, it's kind of tough to really differentiate. So, I look for out-of-the-box people. I look for people who've put the effort in, okay? So whenever people come and ask me about jobs and applying, etc., I said, okay, fine, send me your CV, and then that actually filters out 50% of people, because half the people don't bother to send the CVs, yeah, because they can't be bothered. And so, talk is cheap, but actually doing something about it is important. So when I look at CVs and I get lots of CVs, etc., and I'm nowadays don't even look at CVs. I actually just looked at LinkedIn profiles, etc., for people, or I go on recommendations. Okay.
Like at the bottom of LinkedIn, you mean?
No, not on that. I'll just speak to people in the industry or people they know, or if someone is looking for a role, etc., and someone's recommended me, I always find I think recommendations are the best form of hiring as such, because I think that's if it's someone and that's someone you trust, etc., and you value, and they recommended someone, that I think has more value than the physical CV itself or a LinkedIn profile of someone you don't know. But, if you're going to go through CVs or about 30, 50, 100 CVs a day, it gets kind of boring, kind of monotonous, etc. to go through that thing. So you actually look for different characters. So anyone that excites me from a stand-up perspective, I'm interested. So, anyone that I can interview that has a different story, has a different journey. I'm interested in those life skills and those attributes. So look, I talked about my own PhD and the fact that I wasn't supervised and I lost my motivation to do the PhD, etc. And then I went into pharmaceuticals and ended up in telecoms. So I rate anyone that sticks at a PhD because you need to have self-determination, self-motivation to do a job or a role that doesn't pay so well. Okay, and anyone that pivots to do anything, I'm okay with that. I've pivoted many times. I've gone from pharmaceuticals to telecoms, from telecoms in different roles in telecoms to run a telecom business. So I believe that anyone can do anything. And if you wish to pivot, I'm all for taking risks and pivoting. So I have no objection with that. I'm not one of those traditionalists who thinks, okay, you need to be at this stage of your career with this thing and have this much experience, etc. I think that, anyone who looks for dynamic and who looks for change, absolutely, I think that that's a valuable. And anyone that's got story and can explain why they want to change, I'm more than happy to listen to that person.
That's definitely something I've taken away from conversations with yourself in the past, that you do believe in taking risks, and it's definitely inspiring to see how you view different skill sets, because as you do know, there are many people who will look at a CV and they've already made up their mind. We're always told you've got 20 seconds to make an impression. I think there's two things that come to mind. The first would be, do you believe, so I came across a quote recently, which is that 90% of job skills can be, 90% of jobs can be learned during the process of the work. So it's not like you need a degree per se or formal education. If you do something for a long enough time, you will learn on the job. I think that's the first thing that comes to mind. And also coming back to what you said about the person standing out to you, do you look at it from the perspective of the person being having potential, or are you thinking about it in terms of having colleagues around who would make the time at work interesting? Because I know that for some people that is it's not a taboo subject, but it's something that some people don't really focus on. They're very much like, I go to work, I come home, that's the end of it. But in some workplaces, you build like a family family is maybe a strong word, but you build a camaraderie and a good social setting with people.
Great question, Mahid. To the first part, when I'm looking for individuals who are different, etc., the reason I do that is because I want them to bring ideas and differences to the business. If you go for the same old approach, you're just going to get the same old stagnated movement within your business, etc. And so I always try and look out for a difference of opinion. I'm not bothered what their background is as such. My main concern is what their appetite for growth, etc. How ambitious are they? What do they want to achieve? Okay, that's my main target of when I'm hiring anyone. And so if I can find people who can challenge themselves, but also challenge myself, I don't know everything. I've got no idea about lots of things. Okay. And even the things I do know, I've got no idea how I know them. Okay. So, and I'm happy to learn from multiple people, and that's what's valuable. And I've got staff members who I've learnt so much from. Okay. And if I can impart some of knowledge to them, etc., it becomes a better team. That's the value of the team. Yeah, everyone has different skill sets, everyone has different ideas, everyone has different backgrounds, and that's what makes a great team. Yeah, and if you're building an organization, you need to have that different inputs and different viewpoints, etc. And so if I look at, a lot of telecom companies, a lot of ISPs that I, compete with, or I see them, I think they've got same old, and that's why they've all got same old offering. It's kind of boring. It's all vanilla. It's all just standard, etc. Everyone's got the same offering, and so for me to hire individual people, different people that bring different ideas and are willing to take risks, that's gold dust for me, because that way I can differentiate my product, differentiate my services, and differentiate the value I can offer to my customers, because it stems from that difference of opinion and difference of background. Going to the other part of your question about 90% of loan, I think that, I say this to my kids as well, because they're now, one's gone to university and the other one's going to university, and I was even thinking of the apprenticeship route for some of them. I think university teaches you skills, as I mentioned before. School is a responsibility on the schools is for the teachers to teach. As you go through your careers, etc., the responsibility and onus becomes on the individual to self-learn, okay, and drive that motivation for their self-learning in order for them to fulfill as what they want to do. Because at university, you could get a third, you could get 2-2, 2-1, or a first, and you can flunk out of university as well. And so it really depends on your motivation as the individual, and then beyond that, it really depends on your motivation. But I think that's all part of just learning. You just learn. You just get the ability to learn, the ability to think, the ability to take risks, the ability to challenge yourselves. Whether you're at university, at the social environment, at the personal environment, at the academic environment, it's the chance to grow and mature, into whoever you wish to be. Beyond that, yeah, I agree. Most universities, I don't think that they're equipped with the degrees that are necessary. I would always encourage someone, if they're looking for a degree and they're looking, beyond, to take a vocational degree, a degree that leads into a role, medicine, engineering, radiology, effectively, teaching, those types of degrees, rather than a standard degree, like in the humanities or arts or social sciences or just generic sciences, etc. Not to say that they're not valuable. They are extremely valuable, but I just think that if you are going to go down the path of, you're moving in towards a career, then a vocational degree is to do. I would also say that, in some scenarios now with AI, with coding, etc., do you actually need a degree? Is there really a science and computer science anymore, or was there? Now there has become a more of a science in computer science, because you have algorithms and data science and analytics. But can you learn that, just by doing a Python course or something else, etc., or by doing other coding requirements, etc.? So, there is a value, but you need to understand what that value is, and that's why I think there's a lot more guidance now, and there's a lot more understanding now of what kids are looking for. And if that guidance is available to them, either via the school or parents or other people in the industry, etc., I think people should seek that and move forward on that. And so, going back to your question, is 90% of the stuff learned in business? Probably, maybe, yeah. But for you to get into that business, some businesses require you to have degrees and etc. And so you miss out on those opportunities if you don't have that level of education. Okay, but even if you don't have it, and someone doesn't have the degrees or something, there's no issue with that. Whatever they've done before, again, if they're willing to adapt themselves, they're willing to take risk, willing to differentiate themselves, I don't care whether they've done a degree or not a degree. I don't look at that.
That's perfect. Thank you for your open-mindedness.